Hmm. I. It's a. It's a fine place to end it, but I admit I was expecting some other stuff. This comes as a little bit of a surprise, but only a little bit, tiny, tiny bit. All right. Star Wars Jedi Survivor has been conquered. Woot woot. On a Friday too. A little early. I wasn't I was expecting a full stream today. I didn't think Tanalore was gonna be, just a small walk here, do the fight, and you're done. We were gonna have many more things to do, so I did not write down my thoughts for this game. But my overall thoughts is I had fun with this one. It was it did its thing, and I did my thing, and I didn't reach a super ultra mega hyper difficult roadblock, although that Darth Vader fight did take a little while. But yeah, I enjoyed myself with this one. I haven't seen my playthrough of Fallen Order in a long time, so I'm not 100% sure if I like this one more or less than the previous one. But I think this one does what it needs to do, and I enjoyed my time with it. Thoughts on this, or gosh, I should probably just pull up the whatchamacallit, but for like the story stuff, did it feel complete? I would say so. I honestly, I thought there was going to be two routes here. Either we don't actually go to Tanalore, and Tanalore is like the game ends on a cliffhanger as we figure out how to go to Tanalore, and then maybe like the next game will be Tanalore and Bode will be the big bad. Or they kind of end it like this, where Bode ends up being the final boss, and then they kind of wrap things up nicely in the sense of, if there isn't another game after this one, then things feel resolved, which I think happened in the first game as well. So like they kind of give themselves that leeway. I did see a Reddit post title where I did not read to go into it because there was the potential for spoilers. But I did see that there is going to be a third game, and it's potentially going to be the last game of what I guess is now or was conceptualized as a trilogy. So with that in mind, it does kind of seem interesting that they didn't go on a cliffhanger, but I appreciate it. You never know if you're going to get that next game approved. If the sales don't live up to expectations or what have you. But yeah, I think the story actually felt pretty complete. How was the pacing? This is one of those games where you kind of build your own pacing, and I think I did what I needed to do, in the sense of I didn't let myself get incredibly distracted by all the crazy things that I could be doing. And I think that helped out a lot in keeping on track, and not feeling super overwhelmed or have like an overwhelming desire to just go down over here and figure out what it is. Even though there's been some really nice instances of doing that and kind of getting surprised by things. I'm going to Alt Tab and go to my thoughts because I can't think of anything else. Let's see. Was it satisfying? I would say that the story was satisfying as well. And thoughts on the story? Music is giga loud right now. Just gonna push through it. I think the story was okay, but mostly in the sense of, well, we'll let the story get, or the music get its stuff off. Get them horns in there. I'll probably have to mute this anyways, because Star Wars music. But yeah, I didn't necessarily like the plot revolving around Tanalorr. It felt like we were trying to achieve this unattainable goal that was from a long time ago to, you know, do something that didn't necessarily seem like it was destined for what we wanted to use it for, which is a really complicated way of saying, I feel like we were banking everything on Tanalorr being this paradise planet, and there's really no reason to believe that it will be a paradise planet or a place that actually allows us to live there. So it just kind of seemed a little I want to use a better word, but I'll say like dreamy. Like they're hoping for the best possible outcome and kind of ignoring the more realistic reality that is what's going to happen there. But you know, it is what it is. I do like how they set up Bode to be the kind of villain, as it were. I also liked that they gave us an opportunity to reach a point where it kind of ties Bode's entire motivation and whatnot together. I kind of wish we got to spend a little bit more time with that. You know, talking to that Imperial officer, learning a bit more about Bode's background, maybe having like some flashbacks of him, and whatnot. And like I'm gonna say this, and it's not gonna sound great, but like I wish they spent more time building up Bode rather than building up Dagon. Because, and I recognize that Dagon is, you know, the main antagonist here, and we're trying to stop him, and it's only after we stop him where we can get a chance to start connecting the puzzle pieces for Bode. But the problem that I ran into is Dagon is not really all too interesting, and we don't really like we spend so much time with him and we learn so much about him, but he doesn't end up being an interesting character or a sympathetic character or a character that we necessarily, or I necessarily want to like feel invested in some way, in terms of like, yeah, I want to kill this guy, or yeah, you know, let's see if we can turn him to the good side and he'll help us out or something like that. You know, I didn't feel any sort of positive way towards Dagon. I also think that we spent a really long time with Kree, the kind of the Jedi Master who was in charge of Z type thing. I think we spent so much time, or a lot of time was spent revolving around her, and it did kind of feel a little wasted and not necessarily it didn't feel like it tied back in enough, and that I was like it just didn't work for me. I kind of wish we spent more time with someone else, you know. If we changed up the beginning of the game and we did like 1 or 2 additional missions with the original crew, and then had the whole yacht scene and stuff like that, that might help with Cal's kind of journey, where we get to see him building up a friendship with people, and then that loss moment, and then that helps us like Bode even more, and maybe like I think the pacing there will be a little weird, but I think it sets up Bode better if we get to spend more time with Bode and the rest of the crew, and then like see them all die and whatnot. But the approach that was in this game was fine. Let's see. For gameplay mechanics and design, what gameplay elements stand out? I really liked the kind of different ways to approach combat in this game. I liked that there were different stances, and they all kind of operated in a different way, and they had different skills associated with them, and even skills that were similar to other stances had their own like little niche thing to them. Like the dual wielding lightsaber, if you reflect a laser, you know, you can split a laser and hit 2 targets. But with the great sword lightsaber, if you reflect a laser shot, you can make it basically kind of like a grenade explosion on an enemy and hit, you know, nearby enemies of who you're reflecting to, and it's pretty cool. I like the variety as well. I think each one definitely feels different, and they have like certain strengths and weaknesses that kind of like, I think they did a really good job of that, because like the great sword is not very good at mowing down a bunch, like when you're surrounded by enemies, but the double lightsaber is really good at that, whereas the dual wielding lightsaber is really fast and quick, and you know, has some sweeping motions to kind of help you get in there. And then the single lightsaber is just kind of like a balance all around. You know, it's decently fast. It has basically like the best of all worlds, but without like increases and decreases elsewhere. And then the lightsaber and gun blaster combo was probably the most unique one, because we don't see very many Jedis running around with blasters. So that one was also very cool. So I really liked the way they did that. I also think this is one of those rare times where, like, a Metroidvania type style where you're going back to areas to do um to like do things that you couldn't do before. This was one of those rare moments where I could actually like feel on board with that. I enjoyed. There was a Boba Fett in this game. I don't remember seeing a Boba Fett. This is like one of those rare opportunities where, like, yeah, I can go back and do this stuff. It also helps that, like, I have a map and a compass and a quest marker that tells me everywhere that I need to go. Because in normal or traditional Metroidvanias, you get a new ability and you're like, okay, I need to go everywhere and find out what this ability unlocks so that I can progress. Where in this game, it's like, okay, I got a new ability and I can go back and use this ability and a bunch of other stuff, but I know that the majority of that is side stuff. And if I just continue down the story, which has a quest marker that's leading me down a specific path, then I know where I'll need to use this eventually, and I don't have to go back. So it doesn't require, excessive backtracking and things like that. So I really enjoyed that aspect of, always knowing where to go and not having to start beginning the process of figuring that out. And for combat, I'm not very good at these games. These games are pretty tough, and if you watch that Darth Vader fight, you can really see where my struggles start beginning. But despite that, I liked the combat of this one. I don't think any of the enemies felt excessively cheap. I think some of them had cheap moves or cheap combos. But it's not like they used them every single time. They used them maybe like 2 or 3 times in the entirety of the fight, so it wasn't too bad to maneuver around. And sometimes they wouldn't use it at all. Like that Darth Vader fight, he would knock me to the ground and then throw some books at me, and it's like there's not a whole lot that I can do here. Yeah, I like that. I think my biggest criticism is I think a lot of the major fights had like phases in them, or maybe not a lot of the major fights, but maybe I would say it felt like a lot of the major fights, or maybe those ones just stand out a lot because there would be like cutscenes in the middle of the fight, and those are like, they're nice, but sometimes they kind of interrupt the pacing and the flow of the fight. And I definitely encountered situations where after the cutscene would play and like phase 2 would start, or the second portion of the fight, what have you, it felt like the enemy had the upper hand and would get an attack off like pretty quickly, and I would have to react to it fairly quickly. And it's a weird thing to bring up. I totally recognize, but it's just one of those scenarios where like you interrupt the groove to start a new groove, and that new groove you're kind of on the back foot because you also have your lock on removed, and so you gotta figure that out too. Like the Darth Vader fight is a perfect example of that, where after having one of the cutscenes, we would reset basically, and then he would immediately hit me with a force attack, like pulling me towards him, and that would force me to scramble basically, because he swings, and if you get hit by that swing, it's gonna hurt. And I still haven't locked onto him, so I'm just doing that. I would also say, now that I'm talking about it, I think the dodge is I think maybe I need to spend more time with dodging things, because there is a perfect dodge, but I don't know if you can perfect dodge the red unblockable attacks, and I don't know if perfect dodging is like worth it or something like that. But outside of that, just doing regular dodges, trying to get out of the way of attacks, is kind of difficult for some scenarios. There's that one boss on the tongue boss that I spent a really long time fighting and didn't end up beating. That boss has like a wide hitbox basically when it's doing attacks, and it feels like the normal dodge to the side is not sufficient enough to get out of the way. And what happens to me is I'll dodge to the side and I'll still get hit by it, and those attacks hit pretty hard, sometimes two-shotting, so I wish there was a way to move farther with the dodge, or maybe like there's a perk or something like that I missed, where you can dodge farther and be able to not get hit by these wide sweeping attacks. For dungeons, I don't think there were any dungeons. I will say I greatly enjoyed the banter in this game. Both like from the droids and stormtroopers to the characters in the group to the saloon people. I think it was all wonderfully written and wonderfully executed by all of the voice actors. It was it was one of those scenarios where if the banter got interrupted, I was very sad, because there's so many great lines. There's that guy from like yesterday or the day before where he's just standing there by himself and he's like, "Yeah, come get me. I'm ready for you." Like, stuff like that is hilarious. And it makes this game so much more enjoyable to have those little funny moments. Like, I don't want to say sprinkled in. I would just say like they're placed in spots specifically to kind of like break things up, and it was one of my favorite things about this game is listening to the banter. For cardinal sins, I don't think there's any cardinal sins. Nope, doesn't seem to be any. For miscellaneous sound and music, there's some pretty solid music in this game. It's very orchestra-y, and so I typically don't gravitate towards orchestra-like music for the most part. But Star Wars music, definitely seems to get away with that sometimes. I would also say that this game feels very Star Wars-y. In the sense of, I don't think any of the music felt out of place. And I would even go as far to say that even some of like the remixes or music that's kind of been tinkered with to fit certain scenes, like the Darth Vader fight, for instance, fit exceptionally well. And they did a really good job with that. So definitely props on the music. Voice acting is great. I really like Marin's voice actor. I think she delivers things in just the perfect way, and it's wonderful. Let's see. I also like Grease. I think Bode's voice actor was really good. There's that frog guy, the bartender. There's so many. For graphics, I think the graphics look pretty good. Granted, you know, I didn't get to play on max settings or anything like that. I dialed things back and was tinkering with various things, but I think the game looks pretty good. There's definitely some performance issues involved, but they did not hamper my experience at all. For if it's a sequel, does it achieve more of the same? I would say so. Again, it's been a while since I played Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, but I feel like this is more of the same with some nice improvements. And is the game worth recommending? I would say yes. I would recommend this game. So if the developer is watching, I dig it. You know, I'm definitely interested in a third game. I'm curious where it's gonna go, because you have now found your planet, and now you're gonna try to corral a bunch of people to this planet safely. It's gonna be an interesting way to go about things. And then they got the whole Cal is embracing the dark side and whatnot. Oh, he's going crazy again. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, that's my thoughts. Just to reiterate my overall thoughts, I had fun with the game. It was pretty good. And because this is an Electronic Arts game, I have to wait for the credits to continue rolling. So, technically my thoughts end here, but I'm gonna read chat, and you know, maybe chat can fill in some time here. Hoping the weather holds out to be warm and sunny so you can run in the countryside, but you're told it'll be pouring down. Give me the rain. Give me all the rain. At a role-playing session last night with a system called Deathmatch Island. Basically imagine Hunger Games Battle Royale. Played an old grandpa that upheld his belief of saving his teammate from this evil organization, but right at the end, your teammate decided to betray you to win the game. However, in the final roll-off, your friend rolled nothing but ones and died, leaving the good grandpa as the final survivor. Oh, that's so tragic. Tried to one-up you and only got ones. No ups. 1 hour stream? Yeah. Sometimes it rolls like that. At least it's not a Thursday. I don't know. We could have finished this on Thursday. And then, look, everybody could have had today all to themselves. Wouldn't that been great? You're like, well, don't have to tune into Axelrod on Friday. I get to go do things with my life. Like working. Or going to the grocery store. Or whatever else people do when they go outside. Music is going. I don't even know if you guys can hear me through this music. You know, I'm just kind of talking, wasting time. There hasn't been a ton of games where, you know, I have to wait for the credits to finish. But Electronic Arts games, I think those are typically ones. I will say the weather here in California is great. It is currently 72 American temperature units. That quantifies as 22 non-American temperature units. Which is great because just a couple of weeks ago, it was 109 American temperature units in my room, indoors in my room. And I think that is somewhere around the 41s, the 42s of non-American temperature units. Oh, rough times. Glad to be past that. I hope the cold weather continues for a long time. And forever. No more hot weather. Give me 70, give me 72 every day for the rest of this year and for the first 6 months of next year. And then we can have our July and August and half of September where we can bump it up to like 85, 90. And then we, you know, second half of September, we go back down to, you know, like 72 and under. That would be great. Absolutely great. Running out of things to say. I mentioned earlier that the Race the World First has been going on, and I'm rooting for Team Liquid. You know, they're the North American team. Echo is the European team, and you know, the race is shaping up to be something pretty crazy. On the 5th boss is when, well, like it's an 8 boss raid, and the first 4 bosses were defeated in one try. And then the 5th boss took 120 pulls, which is decently high, or, you know, like it's in that spectrum of high for a 5th boss in a raid. Typically, you'll have like the first 2 bosses will be one shot. The 3rd boss, you know, maybe you'll have like up to 5 deaths or something like that. And then the 4th boss, you know, maybe like 40 or 50 deaths. And then the 5th boss, 40 or 50 deaths or something like that. But it isn't until the penultimate boss and the last boss where you would typically see like hundreds of deaths. So the way things are shaping up right now is that fifth boss was 120 deaths. The sixth boss is looking to be 100 plus deaths as well, potentially. And then the seventh boss, everybody is terrified of, because there's some crazy potential there for that boss to possibly be the most difficult boss of the raid based off of the mechanics that are described and how people have to work with them. So some people are expecting like 200 pulls for that boss, and then the last boss, who knows? I think a lot of people are hoping for 200 plus pulls, but we'll see. I don't think it's necessarily possible for the last two bosses to be 200 pulls each, and for the raid to end by Monday. So if they're going to be 200 pull bosses, then we'll have to go into reset for next week. And honestly, I'm a little afraid of... Team Liquid is pretty good at reprogressing old fights. Like, they, for whatever reason, like, they'll do 120 pulls on the fifth boss, and then once reset happens, they'll go back to that boss and they'll beat it in between like 1 and 10 tries. So that in of itself is very impressive, especially for a boss that's very difficult and has high execution and things like that. So just them in of itself, they'll probably get back up to where they need to be pretty quickly, just based off of, the past indicators. But yeah, I think the sixth boss will probably die tomorrow, and then the rest of this lockout will be the seventh boss, which is the Silken Court. And I think they'll be trying to figure that out for the rest of the lockout, and then they'll be continuing to figure that out for the next lockout. And I think the final boss will probably die
well,
like Friday or Saturday.
It's not exactly what we expected, but this place is our home now.
Yeah, Grease. Yeah, I guess it is. Still got a lot of work ahead of us.
It will take time to contact the hidden path.
And find the anchorites.
And build a saloon. I mean, the place is creepy, but it does have franchise potential.
This belongs with you.
It belongs with all of us. What do you think, kid? Should we give it a shot?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Ah, that's the spirit. Oh, that's great. Come on, I'll bet you're hungry. I'll make you something to eat. Did you ever have a scaz steak?
All right. Journey complete. You have reached the end of the journey. However, the galaxy can be freely explored, and there may yet be secrets left to uncover. New Journey Plus is now available from the main menu. All stances and cosmetics from previous games will be unlocked, along with some new perks and lightsaber colors. These skill points will also carry over. New Journey Plus free perks. Purity grants a massive increase in weapon damage for both friends and foes. Warrior replaces standard enemies with new, more difficult combat encounters. Trend Setter randomizes your cosmetics on death. That's pretty cool. That's actually very cool. Doesn't seem like I have them, though. Unless I have to go find them, which would be very sad. Or maybe that's like a New Game Plus only thing. I don't know. Third game getting Witcher 3 vibes. Oh, we'll see. We will see. Alrighty, well, that's going to wrap it up for my thoughts here. Yeah.